Well, every week we get you ready for the NFL games by helping you place the smartest bets. We're not telling you how to bet, just giving you the research on how the pros are laying their money. And we're going to start with a pro sports bettor and the host of the Bet the Board podcast, Payne Insider, joining us. Hey, Payne, how's everything?
Everything's great. How you doing tonight, Steve?
All is well. All is well. I think we're going to start things off with a game that is seeing a ton of action. New England, 6.5-point favorite in Tennessee. And according to the latest stats, about 80% of the tickets and 80% of the money is on New England. Is this maybe a game that we just shouldn't even overthink?
That does look the way it's going right now. It's up to 7, but I can tell you the one angle professional bettors are attacking here is the over. 46 and 46.5 was the buy point. And I think for a couple of reasons. You know, the market continues not to really factor in what the Titans' offense is now. They're looking at their full season data. And so you had Blaine Gabbert play multiple games. You had Mariota. His starts, he's been injured for most of them. He's had the elbow injury, the ulnar injury, hasn't been able to push the ball down the field. So I think the Titans' offense isn't really being credited properly. They've also faced the toughest schedule of opposing defense. So I think this is an easier task here against New England's defense. I think the other interesting factor here is the Patriots seem to like to go into their bye with momentum. The last 6 years before their bye week, New England's averaged 43 points per game. And so some things that I've heard this week and a lot of people are talking about is how, like, Vrabel is very familiar with Belichick. That doesn't seem to really matter at this point. Vrabel was the defensive coordinator with the Texans. He's faced Belichick 4 times from 2015 to 2017. Vrabel's defense has given up 31 points in those 4 matchups on average. So I think we're going to see some points here. The Titans secondary is just a mess right now. It also wouldn't shock me. Knowing Bill Belichick and his ego, he's going to put Josh Gordon over there on Malcolm Butler to prove to the world why he was benched in the Super Bowl and not retained in free agency. We like the over here, Steve.
Yeah, he always loves to send a message out there, but I think you're right. We have to target good information, not just information we think is important. The good information is things like teams getting healthier. Take, for instance, this Colts game against Jacksonville. The Colts are 3-point home favorites to Jacksonville, but the Jags are getting back their star running back in Leonard Fournette this week. And by the way, over the past couple of weeks, the Colts defense is giving up a whopping 6 yards per carry. Are the Sharps going to look pretty hard at that statistical trend?
You are spot on. You nailed it. At 3.5 and 3, Jacksonville, the clear-cut professional side here, and you would think it's back to basics for the Jaguars offense. Try to get their identity back. The return of Leonard Fournette and some of their key offensive linemen are healthy now. And I think that identity is just being physical, running the football. That's something the Jags have struggled with because of the injuries. Plus, you look at Jacksonville's offense, they've faced the 6th toughest schedule of run defenses. So you get everyone back healthy. Now you get the Colts defense that's 22nd in rushing success rate. If the ground game is going, I think that takes a lot off Blake Bortles' plate here, opens some things up in the pass game. I could see Bortles being comfortable here because of the ground game. Plus, the Colts don't get pressure on quarterbacks at all. They're 26th in pass rush. So when Bortles does throw it, he should have some time in the pocket, be able to take advantage of that Colts secondary. Right now, that Colts secondary, second worst in the NFL. They allow 53% of passes to great successful. I think it's all about the Jaguars this weekend snapping that 4-game losing streak.
Tampa's a 3-point favorite hosting Washington. Considering both defenses are, I don't know, vulnerable is the best way to put it, are the pros kind of on that over 54 in this matchup?
Well, what we've done so far in this game, the line actually opened Tampa Bay -1, and it's just been a monsoon of professional money on the home team, Steve. Sharp bettors, I mean, we think Washington's a little overrated here, right? They have the winning record, but they're actually negative -0.4 yards per play adjusted for opponent on the season. I think the matchup for the Buccaneers offense looks pretty good. You can move the ball through the air on the Redskins defense. We saw it a week ago. Allowed 8.4 yards per pass attempt to Atlanta. That's how Tampa with Fitzpatrick likes to attack. I think the biggest factor here, though, in the game is the injuries for the Washington offense. They lost both starting guards for the season last week. Left tackle Trent Williams is out with the thumb injury. Right tackle Morgan Moses is dealing with the knee injury. So potentially 4 starting offensive linemen gone for the Redskins. And I know it's 2018. It's all about fantasy. Guys focus on the ball. And because of that, the market really never properly adjusts for, like, offensive or defensive line injuries. So that's created some value here. And the last point to this game, defensive tackle Gerald McCoy is back for the Bucs. He held a player-only get-together for the defense. I think we see a more inspired effort on that side of the ball, so it's perfect timing with those Washington Redskins O-line injuries, Steve.
Well, you can get all of his analytics and his opinions on the Bet the Board podcast, pro sports bettor, Payne Insider. Thanks for joining us once again. Appreciate it.
Have a great night, Steve.
Well, let's keep this conversation going now. You can find him on Twitter as the Old Man Who Bets. He's a sports analyst, expert, and a fan of Movember. Jeff Sheesby, thanks for coming in studio.
Thanks for having us, Steve.
And thanks for the facial hair. I appreciate, you bringing your A game this week.
Generating a little awareness for men's health. Here we are.
And here we are, and maybe generating a little awareness of where the pros are laying their money this week as well. And I kind of want to keep going here with that Tampa game. And boy, everybody loves Fitzpatrick. Speaking of facial hair, maybe the best facial hair in the NFL is Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he's kind of added this spark of life to that Bucs offense.
Yeah, his beard is one of a kind, and Fitzmagic is quite literally a wizard on offense these days. The passing average is over 350 yards a game. I think why that's important is just when Alex Smith is playing against a team that averages more than 300 yards per game in the air, he's only covered at about a 40% clip.
All right. So the least bet game of the week is the Jets and the Bills. And maybe the reason for that is the fact that the Bills' offense is atrocious. They can't stop anybody. As a matter of fact, their last 3 games, they've lost by an average of 3 touchdowns.
An average of 3 touchdowns, and in 5 out of 6 losses, it's been more than 7 points. Love the Jets today, which is something I don't say very often. One of the reasons for that specifically is with McCown behind the line today. I think they're actually a better team than they were with Darnold. Last year, he had a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And the public never likes to see a backup quarterback out there. When we look at the Bills on offense, we don't know if we'll be seeing Peterman or if we'll be seeing Barkley. So as long as not Josh Allen is starting, I'm going to take the Jets.
As long as it's not Josh Allen, you should feel safe that way. Well, I tell you what, the Sharks can also change their mind, especially with new information. And we've seen them kind of shift a little bit here on that Saints-Bengals game. Cincinnati, 5.5-point home dog. And there's a reason why the sharp money has flipped on this when A.J. Green.
A.J. Green, obviously a fantastic offensive player, and he's been accounting for more than 40% of their yards through the air. With him out, that obviously creates a personnel inefficiency, if you will. I think when we look at the other side of the ball, the Bengals defense is actually the 4th worst in tackling in the league. We've got Alvin Kamara, who one might say is a little slippery out there. Even teams that are good at tackling can't tackle him. So there should be a lot of points coming from the Saints. I think 2 other scenarios that we should really consider is the Saints obviously coming off a massive win versus the undefeated Rams, where most people would think this is a letdown spot for them. But since 2003, when teams have beaten an undefeated team in November, they've covered their next game at over 65%. And then the last point that I think is very interesting is obviously the Bengals are coming off a bye. Joe Public might think, well, they've had 13 days to prepare for the Saints. Amazing. But since 2003 as well, when a road favorite has been playing a team that has been off for more than 13 days, they've covered at 59%. So a great spot for the Saints.
Boy, the bye doesn't seem to give the benefit to a lot of teams as we expect. Teams usually end up coming off the bye a little bit rusty. And by the way, you can follow him on Twitter, Old Man Who Bets, Jeff Sheesby, and we'll see how that mustache is growing this next week as well.
We'll see if it holds up.
All right, Jeff, thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Stick around. We'll be right back.